5 stocks to buy in 2018. And not only are these 5 stocks to buy, but I think, in my opinion, these are some of the 5 best stocks that every investor should own in 2018, and really most of these for longer than 2018. But before I get into the video, if you haven't checked out my channel before, I talk about investing in the stock market, so if you're interested in anything like that, definitely consider subscribing. But other than that, getting on to the video, like I said, 5 stocks that I think every investor should own, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each stock, but jumping right in. Now these are in an order, but they probably could be changed a little bit depending. It's not like a super concrete order. And when I was making this video as well, I think that there's a lot of stocks I could definitely substitute in this list. It was kind of difficult to choose just 5 stocks. Obviously, if you follow my channel, my portfolio consists a lot more than just 5 stocks, but I think these are really, really big stocks that almost every investor should own. But the first one is Amazon. Now, this one's, I would assume, a pretty obvious one to why you should own this. A lot of people I don't think are necessarily against owning Amazon. I really haven't seen a lot of negative things about them. One very interesting that recently came out about Amazon that I think is a good thing to finally get like a sort of perspective on how well they're doing in this aspect, but Amazon Prime, I think, is going to be a very, very big aspect of Amazon's business model moving forward, as it obviously is now. And they actually just said, I don't know if it was like by accident or not, or if they actually like wanted to say this, but it's sort of been in the dark in the past, but they have 100 million Amazon Prime subscribers. So that's probably bringing in a pretty significant income, even though they normally don't actually talk about like an exact number that they have or even a ballpark number that they have for whatever reason. I think it's honestly because they wanted it to hit this mark before they actually started talking about it, so that investors couldn't take this and sort of turn it around and be like, oh, well, they only have, 25 million, but they wanted to wait until they got up a little bit more, which honestly I think is a pretty smart idea. But Amazon absolutely dominating in their industry and their sector, literally knocking off companies that are retail related, even not necessarily online retail related, but a lot of brick and mortar stores like JCPenney's, Macy's, Toys R Us recently just went bankrupt. They're hitting some of them somewhat hard, but some are, being able to resist better, like Target, Walmart, Best Buy. Those 3 have been able to resist us a little bit more. Same with other ones like Home Depot, Lowe's. They have been able to handle it a little bit better than some of the other ones. But honestly, I don't think Amazon's going to continue whooping a lot of those retail stores like they have in the past. But the ones that they got knocked out, They're going to get out of the game eventually because they just honestly weren't good enough and weren't able to keep up with the competition. But Amazon still absolutely dominating online e-commerce. They take up a majority of the online e-commerce every single quarter, and especially obviously every retail / online store. Their biggest quarters are in Q4 during the Christmas time, and Amazon absolutely kills every single e-commerce site out there, and it's not even close. I mean, they literally double most of the numbers. Some of its close competitors are places like eBay, and their numbers aren't even close to Amazon's. Amazon's doing a great job not only with their obviously online sales, but with the cloud, with advertising, with Amazon Prime now, hooking up with buying to smaller companies like Twitch they just recently bought, which I think was an awesome small, big return, small investment right there. That was a really, really nice return by them. But anyways, don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to move on to the next stock. And the next stock is Johnson & Johnson. Now, this one, a lot of investors definitely own this stock, but it's not necessarily one of those like hot stocks or very popular stocks like some of the other ones on this list. But why you should own Johnson & Johnson? One reason being that a lot of people try to get in the healthcare sector, but they honestly usually choose pretty crap stocks or pretty risky biopharmaceutical stocks, which I personally don't. I do invest in biopharmaceutical stocks, but I don't invest in any of the risky ones that, are sort of like high risk, high reward type stocks. But Johnson & Johnson's a great way to get into the healthcare industry without actually having to take on a lot of risk, and they honestly do a very well job of dominating the consumer discretionary part of the healthcare as well as some of the biopharm part. Another thing to note about Johnson & Johnson, not all the stocks on this list actually have dividend yields, but Johnson & Johnson has a very, very nice dividend yield, as well as they have been increasing this yield for over 50 years. So they are part of the Dividend Kings, which are a set of stocks that have been increasing their dividend yield for at least 50 years. It's one of the stocks out there that's been around for the longest, and I don't know if it's actually the oldest like public stock ever. I think that I'm not actually 100% sure which company that is off the top of my head. I think Procter & Gamble actually has a slightly long dividend yield increase than Johnson & Johnson, but overall Johnson & Johnson, if you go down to your bathroom right now, I'm sure almost every single product in there is owned by them, even if you don't actually realize it, because it's kind of a cool thing to look up. Just Google right now how many companies or what products do Johnson & Johnson own, and you'd be surprised how many they actually do. But they're one of those companies, once again, retail companies that aren't actually getting hit very hard by the Amazon effect, and they have been doing pretty well for the most part, because honestly, one part about Amazon that if you follow them at all, they aren't really able to get into the biopharm or the pharmaceutical market, which obviously Johnson & Johnson is in a bit more than that. But anyways, moving on to the next stock at number 3 is Berkshire Hathaway. Now, once again, I think this one's a pretty obvious reason why this should be on your list. A lot of investors, not just normal investors, but even financial advisors, have trouble beating the S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, etc. On average, the S&P 500 over the past, I think it's like 50 years or something like that, has had 7% return on average. And Berkshire Hathaway, with also out at having a dividend yield that's being reinvested, has consistently beat the S&P 500. And obviously, it's ran by some of the best investors of the world, one of them being Warren Buffett, as well as some people consider him. I consider him probably like 2 or 3, but Charlie Munger also has a big impact on what goes on in Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett, probably, obviously probably the best investor in the world, runs this company, very, very well known. And Berkshire Hathaway, if you actually look at their holdings, I wouldn't, it's almost like, I guess a way to compare Berkshire Hathaway is actually to compare it to like an ETF basically, but I do like Berkshire Hathaway's holdings a lot. I do follow them pretty consistently. If you're an investor, you probably should follow Warren Buffett and follow Berkshire Hathaway. They aren't a super actively managed portfolio, and by that I mean they don't actually buy and sell stocks a whole lot, but they do a very, very good job at what they do, and it's definitely a stock you should consider investing in. Next on the list, coming in at number 2, is McDonald's. And this stock, I guess it's been getting a little bit of hate recently. Not 100% sure why. I think that's, once again, some people may be trying to short sell it a little bit. But McDonald's, one of my favorite stocks overall. Definitely one of the stocks I think every investor should hold. Once again, not a super fancy or super hot stock right now, but definitely one of those best solid dividend yielding stocks, really just a solid blue chip stock. McDonald's, a lot of people, I feel like some people try to criticize it because they say it doesn't, I don't even know, like fast food's going out of style or something like that, when it is totally not true at all when you actually look at the numbers. And McDonald's has been doing a very, very good job with their $1, $2, and $3 value menus, as well as promoting it worldwide. McDonald's, as well as a lot of other fast food companies, but not like some of its direct competition like Burger King, but McDonald's are doing a very, very good job expanding internationally, as well as in China and other countries abroad, which I think is going to be a very, very big factor, considering countries like China and India have the fastest growing middle class by far, and they're obviously crushing the US because of populations like 3-4 times the size of ours. But McDonald's, I think, is going to do very, very good in the future. They're going to continue to do well, and they're definitely not a company that's going anywhere, that has a very good dividend that they continue to raise as well. And coming in at number 1, and this one's probably pretty obvious, is Apple. The biggest company in the world, almost has $1 trillion market cap. I believe they probably will be the first company to do $1 trillion market cap. And I'm actually making this video on April 24th, 2018, and there was some recent news about like some forecast of Apple not, iPhone, I think it was like the supply or the demand for iPhones or something like that going down, which I feel like almost every single quarter there's news like that that comes out from one story and it gets all hyped up and people start freaking out, and then surprise, Apple blows every single company away, not even close in phone sales. And they just absolutely dominated last quarter, and I think it was, I can't remember off the top of my head actually, I've said it in one of my past videos, but they absolutely blew every single company, not even close, like out of phone sales in the fourth quarter, and I believe it was total in 2018 as well. And besides the iPhone sales, some people for whatever weird reason get really worried about iPhone sales all the time, but they never disappoint, and some people were worried about that, But one thing Apple does, which I think can counter that, is they are focusing on more products. Obviously, they have their iPad, Mac, MacBook, but they came out with a new affordable iPad, which I think is kind of something pretty obvious that they should have done a while ago. They also came out with the HomePod recently, which is, you know, them kind of getting into the home ecosystem, trying to get people to have an entire Apple home, not just, you know, their normal electronic devices. And a couple other things Apple's doing very well is when you look at their sales numbers, basically how many units they're selling every single quarter, including like electronic online units, everything like that. There's a little other category which counts as things like Apple Care, AirPods, maybe iPad is in that, I can't actually remember, but just basically all side products that aren't their main products, like iPhones, MacBooks, stuff like that. And that other category is slowly increasing every single quarter since I've been following Apple stock. And that's very, very purposeful. They're not doing that by accident. And obviously, if you follow Apple at all, you'll see they are expanding what products they're selling, and they are doing a very good job at it. So Apple definitely comes in at number one. And just, you know, some other basic stock facts about it. It has enormous room to increase its dividend yield, which it has been doing. And I can pretty much bet it's going to be definitely a dividend aristocrat and maybe a dividend king in the future. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. Once again, number 5, Amazon, number 4, Johnson & Johnson, number 3, McDonald's, and number 3, Berkshire Hathaway, number 2, McDonald's, and number 1, Apple. But anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and definitely consider subscribing if you're interested in stocks, the stock market, or really anything that has to do with money and personal finance. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video.